of major happenings in the NHL tonight we have to get you updated on. First, an incident from Carolina where Alexander Ovechkin and Tim Gleason went knee on knee. Ovechkin would get 5 minutes and a game. But more importantly for Washington, he suffered a leg injury. No word yet on the severity of that injury. But nothing will top this in Atlanta. Following an Ilya Kovalchuk goal, Panthers defenseman Keith Ballard went to strike the post with his stick and accidentally hit his own goaltender Tomas Vokoun instead in the head. Vokoun lay motionless for a while before being taken off on a stretcher and transported to hospital with an ear laceration. Unbelievable turn of events. Welcome to our Connected Studios, everyone. Martin Garland along with Brad Finn. I suppose the only thing that would have made it crazier is if the Leafs would have won 3 in a row. Yeah,
or if something happened with Tiger Woods, which we'll get to later on as well. Highlights from around the National Hockey League and much more post-game reaction from the game you just watched. But first, as we just talked about, the incidents tonight in the NHL, a bit of a strange night, Darren Millard.
Yeah, and the Leafs were not unaffected by that. Carl Gunnarsson left the game early on, and then the photographer takes the puck through the little hole in the glass, and he got a souvenir stick out of it. Darren Ballard, along with Nick Kypreos and Bill Waters. Let's start with the Alexander Ovechkin knee-on-knee in the Carolina-Washington game against Tim Gleason. Was it a dirty play?
Yeah, in my opinion, absolutely. And we know that Ovechkin plays the game as hard as anybody, but at times he's known to be reckless. And I think this is the one incident that catches up to him. Gleason tries to come to the inside, and he sticks his knee out, tries to get a piece of him, and there you have the knee-on-knee. As we recall in the playoffs last year, he dodged a bullet on a knee-on-knee with Sergei Gonchar against Pittsburgh. Did not get suspended, but I think was forewarned for sure that, hey, you can't be reckless. It's going to catch up to you. And tonight it did, and there's no doubt in my mind, regardless of how injured Ovechkin is, he will be suspended for this play.
And it's the second 5-minute major in a game misconduct in about 10 days for Alexander Ovechkin, who piled Patrick Kaleta into the boards.
Yeah, and Colin Campbell told him at that time, you're in front of me again, it won't be nearly as pleasant. And as Nick pointed out, the Gonchar thing, at least he had a bit of an excuse. He stayed on the rails. But Gleason went out of his way to avoid it, and he went out of his way, Ovechkin, to get him. I'm still not sure
He's not a repeat offender, though.
Not in that area.
No,
but
not in that area.
He certainly isn't a repeat offender based on the Gonchar hit.
No.
And he got nothing for that.
But the Larocque suspension last week comes off fresh enough that this will be drawn as a comparable.
And that Larocque suspension, Nick, if you compare them fairly, although the injury was not as severe, but this move on Ovechkin's part, going out of his way with his knee out, was far more severe than Larocque. Unfortunately, the injury to Kronwall was much more serious than it was to
Two
Gleason.
things, the health of Ovechkin and the supplemental discipline coming from the National Hockey League, potential there. Joe Corville, injuries abound with the Carolina Hurricanes. They've had just a horrible season. Continue, Carl Alsner's skate catches him in the calf area, and down he went. They got him off the ice immediately and got to the hospital. Not much protection there. The National Hockey League has looked at, with RBK, putting a meshing type on the back, but so far that hasn't gone anywhere.
I would really hope there'd be a sense of urgency for the manufacturers, for the league, the Players Association to do something. We saw at the beginning of the season Markov go down. The early word is that they're worried about an Achilles tendon being cut as well with Corvo, but that's unofficial right now. Let's hope that's not the case, but that's certainly the worry. He was taken to the hospital after the game.
You played. Is there anything you can do there beyond the league putting in something like the manufacturer?
The only thing that I've seen, and I think that still goes on today, is cotton. They load the cotton in the back of the calf, and they just wrap tape around it and just try to protect it. But that's not foolproof either.
You have been an agent. You've been a manager in the National Hockey League, part of upper management. I don't know whether you've ever seen anything like what happened in Atlanta this evening between the Florida Panthers and the Thrashers. Tomas Vokoun gets beat. Keith Ballard goes to vent his frustration on the post and clubs his goal.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. As you pointed out, I'm surprised they didn't hang Gleason from the goalpost after the unfortunate incident. I mean, obviously he didn't do it on purpose, but how upset he must have been. And he gave him a pretty good slice over the ear. I don't know whether he was distracted after he decided he was going to swing the stick and just missed the idea that Vokoun's head happened to get in the way.
He was devastated. Saw a shot of him on the bench. And he did stay in the game. Peter DeBoer kept him in the hockey game.
Yeah, as a player and a broadcaster, I've never seen anything like it in 20 years. And I will say this, regardless of the injury, I think it's absolute bush league that a guy after any goal would go and smash his stick over the post. I think it's ridiculous, and I think that any coach and any veteran around would tell any of the players, don't do that. You don't show that type of emotion, and you don't show that type of frustration, regardless, obviously, if you hit a goalie or not. But something like that at the National Hockey League level should never happen.
And it could splint, the stick could break, Nick, it could end up in your eye. I mean, probably that was the least effective. I'm with you. Why is he doing that? I mean, he obviously, De Boer's not very happy with Ballard's play, not on tonight's play, but for him to do that after a goal by one of the great players in the game.
Regardless of who you're frustrated with, yourself, your goalie, your team, the crowd, it doesn't matter. You don't show that type of negative emotion.
The only thing I've seen that comes close to the World Championships a couple of years ago, Yaroslav Halak took it from his own teammate. Continue on this roundup, and the Columbus Blue Jackets have been going in the wrong direction over the last week, and tonight lose Raslav Plesla early on in the game against the St. Louis Blues. He gets caught up with Barrett Jackman, and looks like his leg takes the brunt of this thing, and I mean, he was in big-time pain. They got him off the ice onto a stretcher, and away he went.
And Kless is one of their better players, and the struggles continue for Columbus.
Carl Gunnarsson, upper body injury. He did not return.
No, he got a bad shoulder. He's out for a while, I would think, based on the impact behind the net. And it almost reminded me of last night's Grey Cup game.
No give at all on the glass and the boards when Gunnarsson hit it, and you just wonder if why don't we just have brick walls up there?
It's the year of the injury, and it hit its zenith tonight. We'll be back to talk about the Maple Leaf loss against the Buffalo Sabres in just a bit. Brad Martin.